I never imagined a single mom could find comfort in a billionaire's arms as our lives intertwined. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The day the darkness swallowed my light. I stood there, heart racing, tears blazing trails down my cheeks, feeling like the world was caving in. The weight of my struggles pressed on my chest, each breath an act of defiance. My life had spiraled into chaos. Alone, I juggled work and parenting, all while the memories of a broken marriage haunted me. My son, Leo, was my anchor, his laughter my saving grace, but even his joy could not wash away the bitterness that clung to my heart. I could see the worry in his innocent eyes, a reflection of the turmoil I tried to hide from him. That fateful day, while I was scrubbing dishes and fighting back another wave of sadness, something unexpected happened. A knock echoed through my tiny apartment, sharp and insistent. Much to my surprise, it was him. Michael Thornton. The city's most elusive billionaire, a man cloaked in mystery and allure. It didn't make sense. I barely knew him, yet there he stood, framed by the doorway like a thundercloud promising rain. His blue eyes pierced through to my soul, carrying the weight of untold secrets. He stepped inside, and the air changed, thick with unspoken anticipation. My hands trembled, water dripping onto the floor as I tried to process his presence in my chaos. He smelled of expensive cologne, yet something raw lingered beneath. My heart pounded palpable, erratic as he studied my face, searching for something I couldn't name. "You look like you could use a friend," he said. His voice was deep and smooth, embracing the silence that followed. Before I could respond, he was closer, reaching for my hand, the warmth of his touch igniting something within me, like a spark in dry wood. I felt alive. Was that even possible? I barely recognized myself in that moment. The weight of my struggles felt lighter, if only for an instant. Was I truly ready to let someone into my world? I could see Leo in the other room, blissfully unaware of the turning tides, his laughter ringing like a gentle bell, both comforting and terrifying. But behind Michael's charming smile rested shadows. How could a man like him see me, a single mom drowning in hardship? This was a fantasy that could collapse any moment. My gut tightened as a nagging voice warned me of the impending fallout. As we talked, secrets unfolded that night. He spoke of his family's dark legacy, the pressure of wealth suffocating him. I shared glimpses of my life's wreckage, my dreams uprooted, the tears held back for my son's sake. Each exchange felt sacred, the connection deepening like roots intertwining underground. Then, the night grew colder, and with it came the revelation that would change everything. Michael leaned closer, his voice a whisper, and I could feel his breath on my skin. "I have a proposal," he said, daring and reckless. "What if we teamed up? You and me against the world." My heart stopped. What did that mean? The thrill fought fiercely against the fear twisting in my gut. Was it desperation or opportunity? My mind raced, and just when I thought I could grasp the reality of his offer, the lights flickered ominously, the shadows loomed larger, and a sudden crash echoed outside, shattering our moment. I looked at him, my eyes wide with uncertainty, his expression mirroring my bewilderment. What had I just stumbled into? What did this mean for us, for Leo, for my fragile world? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The next few days blurred into a haze of uncertainty, each hour stretching like a low tide, pulling back the comfort of that fateful night with Michael and leaving exposed the jagged rocks of doubt and fear. The city buzzed around me, a cacophony of life and ambition, yet each sound was muffled under the weight of my concerns. I faced the same dishes, the same bills, and the same routine that had begun to wear me thin. Despite Leo's laughter still echoing in our small apartment, clouds loomed above, dark and heavy. Every time the doorbell rang, my heart would leap, stubbornly bounding with hope. Each ring of the phone sent a jolt through me, sparking anticipation and dread like a live wire. Yet, Michael never came back. Each ignored call shattered the fragile thread of connection we had woven, the silence screaming louder than any words could. I wanted to reach out, to ask what he had meant by his proposal, to learn if there was more to his offer, but fear anchored my feet to the ground. Could I burden him with the realities of my life, the weight of my responsibilities? Leo, blissfully unaware of the tempest in my heart, filled our evenings with small moments that reminded me why I fought every day. His curiosity was endless. He found magic in the mundane, the way the light streamed through the window in the morning, the thrill of counting how many fireflies he could catch at night. I smiled, each laugh a beacon guiding me away from the edge of despair. But the smile didn't quite reach my eyes. In a rare moment of ascending to the surface, I sat with him on our creaky balcony, watching the sun dip beneath the skyline as it painted the horizon in hues of orange and lavender. "Mom," he said, biting into a slice of watermelon, "do you think there are nice people in the city?" His innocent query struck me like a lightning bolt. Was this world filled only with shadows? "Of course, Leo," I replied, holding back the truth I'd learned too well. "There are many nice people, we just have to look for them." I gazed out at the city before us, a mosaic of dreams and dramas, a place where kindness seemed drowned out by cruelty, where hopes were often lost in the noise. But as if in response to my thoughts, something unexpected happened the very next day. I was rushing down the street, Leo's hand warm in mine as we hurried to his after-school program. The sidewalk glistened from an earlier rain, and beneath the clouded sky, I wrestled with juggling my worn-out purse and a half-eaten granola bar for Leo. It was a day like many others, frustration and worry swirling inside me. And then it happened. We collided with a stranger that I looked up, ready to apologize, and met the warm eyes of an elderly woman. Her radiant smile was like sunshine breaking through a storm. "Oh dear, no harm done," she chuckled, adjusting the large sun hat that swayed slightly under the weight of her memories. "In this city, it's easy to forget that we're all just trying to find our way, isn't it?" Something in her gaze grounded me. We exchanged small talk, casual pleasantries performed with the grace of strangers who understood the unspoken weight of life's burdens. Leo tried to climb a nearby fence, his laughter cutting through the air, and the woman leaned in, whispering to me. "You know, dear, I see a light in you. It's beautiful." That simple comment pierced through my heaviness, igniting a flicker of hope within. Perhaps there were still connections to be made, relationships that could grow, friendships not tainted by fear of judgment or rejection. But just as I was beginning to dwell in this warmth, disaster struck. A commotion erupted at the other end of the street, where young men stood menacingly, their voices rising in aggressive tones. An all too familiar sense of unease washed over me as they shoved a man against a wall, their intentions clear. My stomach dropped, the lightness from earlier vanished, leaving dread in its wake. "Mom!" Leo cried, his voice trembling in a way that shattered my moment of connection with the stranger. I turned, pulling him close, shielding him from the escalating chaos. The woman placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "Sometimes, we have to weather the storm before we can see the beauty of the rainbow," she whispered before vanishing into the tide of pedestrians who scattered. With adrenaline rushing through me, I gathered Leo in my arms and pulled him away, the sound of shouts echoing like a distant storm. The darkness of the city had crept closer, eclipsing those small moments of joy I desperately clung to. Later that evening, alone in our apartment, I held Leo against my chest as he drifted to sleep, his small form a balm against my racing heart. I stared at the ceiling, thoughts swirling like leaves in a windstorm. Michael's proposal lingered in my mind. Could I dare explore the path that may lead us away from these shadows? Or do I keep getting pulled under, fighting against the waves alone? It was then, as I wrestled with my thoughts, my phone buzzed, jolting me from the haze. I looked down, my heart plummeting. A text from Michael. "We need to talk. Something is happening." My pulse quickened, a mix of fear and newfound hope spiraling through me. What could he want? What did he know? The darkness outside had become an echo of uncertainty, and before I could catch my breath, a new realization washed over me. Maybe the light I craved was finally reaching for me through the cracks. But at what cost? The phone slipped from my fingers, falling onto the pillow beside me, a weighty presence in the quiet night. My heart raced, thrumming against my ribs like a trapped bird. What could Michael possibly have to say that would change anything? Questions spun wildly in my mind, chasing away the last traces of sleep, leaving a hollow pit in my stomach that I picked up the phone, hesitating before responding, fingers hovering over the screen as if they bore the fate of the world. After all this time, months of silence, had he finally come to the realization that our lives intertwining might not only be a fanciful notion? My heart dared to hope. Just as I began to type out a reply, the familiar sound of Leo's soft breaths filled the room. I glanced over at him, nestled peacefully among the blankets, completely unaware of the storm churning within me. Sometimes, I wished I could borrow his innocence, his ability to trust in the goodness of the world. I admired his ability to find excitement in discarded boxes, his joy in imperfectly colored drawings, the way he could make sunshine dance inside our cramped walls. But as I lay there, battling my fears, a creeping doubt began to surface. What if I pulled him deeper into the chaos? A knock on the front door sent a shiver of alarm through me, the suddenness of it snapping me back to the present. Heart racing, I crept toward the door, peering through the peephole to see a shadowy figure flanked by the flickering light from the hallway. My instinct screamed at me to retreat, to shield Leo from whatever might lie beyond that door. Is someone there? I called hesitantly, straining against the uncertainty. The figure shifted, and I released a breath I hadn't known I was holding when I recognized the silhouette of our landlord, Mr. Harris, with his thick glasses and ever-frowning demeanor. Sorry to disturb you, but I need to speak with you. It's urgent. I opened the door a crack, ready to shove it closed if I caught an inkling of discomfort. What's going on? I asked, maintaining a protective grip on the edges of the door. I've heard from neighbors about noises. Unpleasant events happening in the building. His voice was cautious, laced with concern. We need to talk about your lease. There's been an uptick in reported problems, and I'm afraid we might have to terminate the agreements for some tenants. A dread settled over me, heavy and suffocating. What do you mean? His frown deepened. I'm just being transparent. You're not involved, but I can't tell what might escalate. We need to look out for everyone's safety. My stomach churned. The thoughts whirled. Was I to blame for the chaos seeping through the walls? I squeezed the handle of the door, wanting to shut it against the world, against realities I wasn't ready to confront. Thank you for letting me know, Mr. Harris. But well manage. Very well, just keep yourself and your son safe. He turned to leave, and I went back inside, a sense of foreboding rising within me. I closed the door and leaned against it, the weight of his words settling heavily on my chest. The thought of losing our apartment, the flimsy safety it provided, sent waves of panic rushing through me. As I paced the room, glancing anxiously at the sleeping Leo, my mind began to spin threads of desperation. What if I lost this place I had fought so hard to hold on to? Without a home, how could I seek help, clarity, or even the slightest bit of happiness? My phone buzzed again, drawing me back from the gnarled branches of my thoughts. I opened Michael's message. Can we meet? I promise it's important. Followed by a second message. I found something out about my family. It's connected to you, to us. The world around me shifted, the air thick with confusion and revelation. My pulse quickened. What could he possibly have discovered that intricately wove his life with mine? I felt as though I stood on the precipice of something monumental, a chasm opening up beneath me. Still, amid the chaos brewing within my life, a flicker of curiosity stirred. Michael had once warned me that problems lay ahead, but could it truly lead to a semblance of hope? I grabbed the phone and typed back. When and where? I went back to Leo and watched him sleep, his chest rising and falling in a soft rhythm. Tomorrow might bring uncertainty, but I held on to a small sliver of hope hidden somewhere between the known troubles and the unforeseen revelations. And just as I lay beside him to escape the foreboding outside, I heard a distant siren wailing, cutting through the silence as I drifted off into a churn of dreams laden with shadows of the past and the weight of burdens yet to come. In the night, the only company I had were unspoken fears and the echo of my own hope, swirling together in a battle for my very soul. Little did I know, dawn would bring with it a revelation that would shatter everything I thought I knew. The sun peeked through the blinds the next morning, spilling soft light into the room, illuminating the corners where shadows had lingered. I blinked sleepily, the tender morning glow playing tricks with the remnants of my complicated dreams. Leo stirred beside me, a small groan escaping his lips as he curled into the pillow, blissfully unaware of the tangled mess his mother navigated. I wanted desperately to protect him from the world's deepest fears. With a lingering sense of dread gnawing at my insides, I remembered the text from Michael and what Mr. Harris had warned. I sat up and rubbed my face with my palms, trying to bring clarity to the haze of impending doom that surrounded me. Today would bring answers, perhaps even hope. Or, more likely, it would serve as another reminder of my chaotic reality. Before I could lose my nerve, I rose and began preparing breakfast. Leo woke up, his tiny hands rubbing the sleep from his eyes, a yawn stretching across his face. "Good morning, Mom," he chirped, a radiant smile bringing life to the otherwise mundane morning ritual. "Good morning, sweet pea. How about some pancakes today?" I said, feeling the slightest tingle of joy ignite within me. Even through the tumult, he had a magical way of making the simplest moments feel special. After breakfast, I encouraged him to draw while I staved off anxieties with distracted chores. Little fingers danced over paper, creating his vibrant worlds, as I half-heartedly picked up toys and wiped down surfaces that seemed to gather dust overnight. My phone lay on the table, a silent harbinger of whatever was yet to come. The hours ticked by slowly, heavy with anticipation. Finally, as the clock edged closer to the time I agreed to meet Michael, my heart began to race again. I attempted to calm myself, reminding myself of the tranquil moments shared with Leo. How could I take them for granted now? I had to hold on to the light, grasp the fleeting rays before darkness came cascading back. As I adjusted my shirt and hair, gathering the strength I needed, Leo approached me, clutching a crumpled drawing. "Look, Mom. This is us." He beamed, held out the paper showing a kaleidoscope of colors, stick figures resembling us under a giant sun, adorned with scribbled hearts. With a lump rising in my throat, I knelt down to meet his eyes, absorbing the innocence and love he poured onto that page. "It's beautiful, Leo. Just like you," I said, giving him a tight hug. "You keep creating these masterpieces for me, okay?" With a nod, he returned to his art, leaving me alone once more, this time feeling less burdened and more fortified by his spirit. I grabbed my phone and opened the messages, seeing Michael's name pop up with familiar weight. The time was near, and so were revelations. That I locked the door behind me as I stepped into the warm sunlight, the air carrying the fragrant scent of blooming flowers, a stark reminder of life persisting despite its trials. Each step toward the cafe felt monumental, as if realizing that I was one foot closer to unraveling the threads intertwined with my fate. The cafe bustled with chatter and soft laughter, the aroma of brewed coffee swirling around me. I spotted Michael at a small table in the back, looking forlorn and hopeful all at once. He held my gaze as I approached, and a hint of resolve pressed against my heart. Would this meeting spell disaster, or was it the chance for clarity? "Hey," he said softly, rising from his seat, his expression masking an undercurrent of emotions. "Thank you for coming. Of course," I replied, taking a seat across from him. As our eyes locked, questions swirled like autumn leaves around our table. "You said you found something out about your family?" He hesitated, swallowing hard as if the words pained him to speak. "Yes, and it involves you, and your past." Each word hung heavily in the air, the gravity of his revelation entangling my heart. "What do you mean?" Michael leaned in, his voice a gentle whisper. "When I dug into my family's history, I discovered something shocking, something that connects us." Just as he opened his mouth to continue, we were interrupted by the clatter of a chair crashing to the floor nearby. A woman shouted, her voice sharp against the cafe's gentle hum. "Why won't you leave me alone?" All heads turned to witness the commotion, the distraction pulling me from Michael's probing gaze. My heart stopped as I recognized the distressed woman. It was Claire, someone I thought I had lost from my life entirely. A wave of fear washed over me as I caught sight of her wide eyes, wild with desperation. Could this chaos spill into my own life again? I looked back at Michael, a knot tightening in my stomach, the the looming potential of whatever he had to say fading with the unexpected storm erupting beside us. "Claire?" I said, almost unable to believe my eyes. Her expression morphed into confusion, rage still bubbling beneath the surface. "You need to help me. They're looking for me." Before I could process her fear, I felt the air shift, chaos swirling once more around my heart, the danger of intertwining worlds coming into sharp focus. I met Michael's eyes again. Whatever connection we might explore was suddenly obscured by Claire's urgent plea, and the threshold I stood on teetered perilously. "There's a lot more to unravel," Michael said quietly, yet I felt the pulse of danger building, a terrible bated breath in my chest. My heart raced with a mix of dread and realization I was about to plunge into deeper waters, and I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The clamor in the cafe transformed into a surreal backdrop, blurring the edges of reality as Claire's distressed face registered in my mind. My heart slammed against my ribs as if it sensed the weight of her presence, bringing with it echoes of old wounds. The vibrant morning I had envisioned was unraveling, the peaceful threads of my life being frayed by an unexpected visitor. "Claire, what's happened?" I urged, rising from the table and stepping towards her, torn between empathy and self-preservation. I hadn't seen her since that fateful day when our lives shifted, and even the thought of her returning filled me with an unsettling mix of nostalgia and fear. "They're after me, Isabel." Her voice trembled, raw with panic. "I thought I'd escaped them, but they've found me." "Who?" I asked, glancing towards Michael, who remained motionless, concern etched on his face. I felt an obligation to protect myself, to shield Leo from the shadows of my past that Claire brought with her. "The people connected to my father," she breathed, shielding her eyes from prying gazes in the cafe. "He uncovered something dangerous, and now they want to tie up loose ends. I swear, it's not safe for you either. We need to leave this place." The urgency in her voice struck a chord deep within me. What had I been plunging forward into while the ghosts of our past haunted her? Fear tightened my chest, mingling with the remnants of the courage I'd clung to moments before. I mustered the strength to voice my thoughts, though they emerged choked with dread. "But, what about Leo? I can't risk him. I'll protect him." Claire insisted, and for a fleeting moment, her eyes flashed with a fierce determination that reminded me of the woman I once admired. "You need to trust me. Two can't face this alone." Her plea struck a fragile thread of solidarity, a recognition of shared battles fought and losses endured. I hesitated, torn between my instinct to run and the emotion clamoring for my attention, the desperate need to help someone who had been just as trapped as I had. "Okay," I finally replied, my voice a whisper against the chaos enveloping us, "but you need to tell me everything, Claire." No secrets. A flicker of gratitude shone in her eyes, but it was quickly eclipsed by the weight of her fear. As I rejoined Michael at the table, hope seemed like a distant star, and worry bubbled to the surface like an unwelcome guest. "I am sorry," I muttered to him, struggling to tear away from the tumult of emotions. "I can't continue this conversation right now. I need to help her." "I understand," he replied, though the somber tone of his voice tugged at my heart. "But please, I'll keep in touch," I promised, clutching the edges of the table, steadying myself in the face of imbalance, though I felt every ounce of resolve shatter inside me. With Claire's hand pressing against mine, we slipped out of the cafe, the weight of unanswered questions lingering behind us like an echo. The sun was no longer a comforting beacon. Instead, it cast long, ominous shadows along the sidewalk as we stepped into the world. "Where do we go?" I asked, and her eyes darted fearfully around, scanning for threats like a prey on the run. "There's a place," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper, "an old friend of my father's. He can help us. It's not far away, just need to get there without being seen." As we moved, I felt the panic rise in my chest like bile. Every passerby suddenly appeared as a potential threat, their faces blurring into anonymity. Claire, sensing my distress, squeezed my hand tight. A fleeting moment of comfort amidst the suffocating anxiety. Just before we reached the corner, my phone vibrated in my pocket, its screen lighting up with another message from Michael. I hesitated, torn between the impulse to check it and my vow not to look back. "Isabel," Claire urged quietly, her voice just above the ruckus of the city. "We can't delay." Every instinct screamed at me to take one last glance, to read what he might reveal, something that could bridge the gap while everything crumbled around us. In a whisper, I turned to Claire. If This is as dangerous as you say, we need to hurry. We might have already put Leo at risk by being out here that we quickened our pace, each step taking us further away from the safety of the life I once knew, and closer to the reckoning of the past I had hoped to leave behind. But as we turned the corner, fragments of trepidation took shape, a feeling that shadows were closing in on us. And then, amidst the relentless tide of adrenaline and fear, my phone buzzed again. I couldn't ignore it. Reluctantly, I pulled the device from my pocket, my heart thudding with anxiety as I swiped the screen open, revealing a single line that shattered the fragile control I had fought to attain. I know where you are. I'm coming to find you. Panic seized me, an icy grip around my throat, as the sense of safety I had stolen from this moment shattered completely. The world I had begun to piece together in quiet hope was now spiraling back into chaos, and the looming darkness turned into a certainty. Whatever truths were unearthed today were just the beginning. We were caught in a web much thicker than either of us had anticipated. And as Claire and I fled into the unforgiving city, the past reached out, ready to reclaim its hold. Each hurried step felt heavier, laden with dread as the streets morphed into a labyrinth of uncertainty, twisting and turning in ways I could scarcely navigate. Claire walked beside me, her expression a mixture of fear and desperation, and while it fueled my adrenaline, it also anchored my heart to a reality I never wanted to revisit. We finally reached a seemingly abandoned building, its exterior weathered and cloaked in shadows. Claire led the way, pushing through a creaking door that protested with age. Inside, the air was stale and thick with memories best left undisturbed. I hesitated on the threshold, panic clawing at my insides. Did I ask this place safe? I asked, my voice barely piercing the deep silence. Trust me, she whispered back, though I sensed the uncertainty lining her words. The past had turned her into a ghost, and it terrified me to think of the lengths people would go to thread the needle of their grievances through our lives. Once more that I followed her into the dimly lit corridor, the walls whispering remnants of forgotten conversations. What's his name? This friend of your father? I tried to maintain focus, even as my nerves danced like fireflies, lighting up the dark corners of my mind. Eli, Claire replied, breath quickening. He's the only one who can help us. But we need to be cautious. It's been years since I last saw him, and things may have changed. As we moved deeper into the building, my phone vibrated again, a dull reminder that the world outside held something sinister for me. I forced myself to ignore it, following Claire into what appeared to be a small office. Frail sunlight peered through broken blinds, casting slatted shadows across the dust-ridden surfaces. Stay here, she urged, moving behind a desk that seemed to sag under the weight of forgotten promises. I'll check if he's around. I nodded, though my heart drummed a rapid rhythm beneath my ribs, each beat a call to find a way out. Alone, the silence weighed heavily, pressing in with suffocating familiarity. I felt beads of sweat trickle down my spine, each passing second echoing with unanswered questions and ominous threats. Suddenly, a muffled thump echoed through the hall, causing my heart to leap into my throat. Instinctively, I crouched behind the desk, straining to hear the faintest sound. A part of me desperately wished it was nothing, a result of old pipes or a settling floor, but experience told me otherwise. Claire. I whispered, uncertainty gnawing at the edges of my composure. The door swung open, and she returned, breathless and wide-eyed. He's not here, she said quickly, her voice a urgent whisper. We need to leave now. Leave? What do you mean? Where will we go? Anxiety twisted tightly around my lungs as I stood, demanding clarity amid the chaos. This was a mistake, she breathed, panic rising in her voice. I told you it's dangerous. Eli may be our last hope, but if he isn't here. A crashing sound rang through the office, and without thinking I grabbed Claire's arm. We have to go, now. We sprinted down the corridor, hearts pounding in unison, the fear of the unknown driving our every step. As we reached the stairs, a figure loomed in the dim light, blocking our path. It was a tall man with familiar features, and I froze, recognition and terror flooding my senses. Isabel? He asked, his voice low and gravelly. Claire, Thomas, Claire hissed, her voice a mix of dread and disbelief. What are you doing here? He demanded, stepping closer, the shadows falling heavily around him. I felt trapped, unable to comprehend why Claire's past seemed to be merging with mine, creating a tangled mess I had rarely thought about. "He's back, Thomas," Claire said, her voice trembling. "They've found us." "But I thought you were safe," he replied, his eyes darting between us with concern. "The family made it clear you're not to come back into their sights." "To be safe, we first need to get Leo," I interjected, realizing that despite everything, the very anchor I had sought to protect was entwined in this chaos. Before anyone could respond, my phone buzzed again. I pulled it out, heart racing as I saw another message. "You can't run from your past. It'll find you, Isabel. No matter where you hide." That moment, time stretched as I felt the weight of his words. The darkness wasn't merely creeping back, it was charging forward, sculpting a path toward inevitable confrontation. "Isabel, we have to focus," Thomas urged, grounding me momentarily. "If your son is in danger, we need to act fast." But as the dread swirled within me, I realized this was no longer just about survival. Landmines from our entwined past were buried deep beneath the surface, ready to explode into chaos at any given moment. And as realities collided, I could feel every fiber of my being unraveling. That familiar sense of safety, the one I desperately clung to, was being eclipsed by a haunting truth. The simplicity of moving forward had become impossible. "Where's Leo?" I whispered, the panic squeezing my throat. "Isabel," Claire interrupted, taking a step toward me, her eyes widening with fear. "We're not just being hunted, we're also being watched." And as realization dawned, a shadow flickered at the edge of the office. I felt the chill ink its way down my spine. One more intersection of our fates, one more decisive moment awaiting the grim finale. The air grew colder, and I could hear the air conditioner click ominously in the background, creating a stutter in the fear that clung to us like a shadow. I scanned the corners of the room, my heart racing, trying to fathom what Claire meant by being watched. The mention of Leo, our son, sent tremors through my frame, sharp and cutting. "Eli, hell no, where Leo is," Claire insisted, her voice barely above a murmur, drawing me back into the present. "But we need to stay quiet. If he's watching us, he could." She trailed off, and for a moment, I caught a glimpse of the vulnerability that had become part of her essence. I stepped closer to her, letting my voice soften. "If Eli is our only hope, we have to try. We can't lose him, Claire." "I can't enough," Thomas interrupted, his expression hardening with resolve. "I've dealt with this shadow before. If Eli is involved, if you truly believe he can help, well, set a trap. But it has to be quick. We don't have time to waste." Panic flickered in my chest, mingling with a shred of hope. Could Eli be the answer we needed? I glanced down at my phone again. Each vibration felt like a countdown, the message tethering me to my past. Before I could voice my anxiety, Thomas turned sharply to his right, eyes narrowing. "We have to move. Now." But then the soft creak of footsteps echoed from the hallway. My breath caught in my throat, and I pulled Claire to me instinctively, grounding us both in uncertainty. The tension thickened, a weighted silence that consumed us as the figure emerged, inching into the dim light. "Looking for me?" A familiar voice dripped from the shadows, smooth yet edged with a cruel taunt. My heart dropped as I recognized him, Calvin, the very architect of my nightmares. "Calvin," I breathed, my voice barely more than a whisper, panic coursing through my veins. "What do you want?" "I came to check on you, Isabel," he said, stepping forward with an unsettling calm. "I miss you. It's been too long." "Get away from us," Claire shouted, taking a bold step forward. "You have no right to be here." Calvin's lips curled into a sinister smile, blue eyes glinting with malice. "Oh, but I have every right. Your dear friend, Eli's been quite the busy bee." "It's amusing, really. You think he's your savior. But let's not kid ourselves. He was always a pawn, like you." My blood ran cold at the mention of his name, the weight of Calvin's words crashing down around me like a tidal wave. "What did you do to him?" I felt a spark of indignation ignite within me, juxtaposed against the gnawing fear for Leo. "Eli's been playing both sides," Calvin replied, his tone dripping with condescension. "He won't lift a finger to help you. Not for you or your appetizing little boy. He simply doesn't care anymore. Stop lying. Claire shouted, her fury palpable in the room. You don't even know him. He wouldn't what? Calvin interrupted smoothly, taking another step toward us, enjoying the chaos had stirred. Wouldn't betray you? I don't have to prove anything to you. You should really ask yourself whose side you're on. Leo's side, I said, my voice steady despite the tremors of fear. We both know what you'd do to him if you had the chance. What makes you think I'd entertain your sick games? Calvin considered me for a moment, an amused expression crossing his features. Ah, Isabel, you still don't see it, do you? You think you can escape this? It's adorable. But you have to understand, everyone's playing a game here. Eli, you, Maleo. The mention of his name shattered something deep within me. Don't you dare say his name, I warned, the protective instinct bubbling up again. Or what? You'll do nothing, he taunted, a smirk curling the edges of his lips. All you'll do is run. Run until you can't run anymore. The room felt as though it was contracting around my mounting horror. Every word he spoke added bricks to the walls I was trying to scale, the feeling of helplessness tightening its grip around my throat. Suddenly, Thomas broke the tension, stepping protectively in front of Claire and me. You made a mistake coming here, Calvin. You need to leave, now. Or I. Promise, you'll regret it, Calvin's smirk faltered, just for a moment, and an irate spark gleamed in his eyes. You think you can intimidate me? Try it, he shot back, but the bravado couldn't mask the slight wavering in his stance, and then, to my shock, Claire moved past Thomas, standing shoulder to shoulder with him, fierce and unflinching. We're not running, Calvin. Not anymore. You want a war? Then we'll give you one. In that moment, an unexpected bond forged itself between us, the embers of hope igniting again amidst our fear. But before I could whisper gratitude to Claire for her bravery, Calvin laughed, a dark, echoing sound that chilled my skin. They'll give you one last chance, he said, voice low. Find Eli. He's our only shared bond. What do you mean? I demanded, eyes narrowing at the sudden challenge in his voice. Calvin leaned closer, his breath a whisper against the air, filled with dangerous promises. Let's just say, the game has changed. You'll need a new player, Isabel. The shadows shifted at the edge of my vision, but all I could focus on was the dread pooling at the pit of my stomach. Who was this new player? How deep did this treachery run? As Calvin stepped back, the darkness closed in behind him, and the weight of what had unleashed settled over us like a storm. No matter where you run, he called, retreating into the shadows, I'll be watching. The echo of his footsteps faded, leaving us trembling in the fragmented silence. The world's weight bore down on my shoulders as I turned to Claire and Thomas, the flickers of hope dimmed by the icy embrace of fear. Leo the First could barely utter his name. My heart a siege of dread. And as we faced each other, the burden of truth loomed heavily above us, unyielding and concrete. Here I stood, on the precipice of a judgment that would be as painful as it was possible. We weren't just being hunted, we were being maneuvered like chess pieces in a perilous game. And I feared the next move could cost us everything. The atmosphere in the room felt stifling and saturated with an unbearable tension, a collision of fear and determination. I looked at Claire and Thomas, their faces a mix of resolve and uncertainty. This could either be the beginning of our battle or the end of everything we held dear. Did you hear him? Claire's voice trembled slightly, but there was an edge of steel in her tone. We need to find Eli. He's what connects us now, whether we like it or not. I nodded, clutching the edge of the dining table for support. But how do we even trust him? Calvin's words, they linger like a haunting melody, twisting the truth. Thomas paced the floor, fingers running through his hair. Eli may have flaws, but we can't let Calvin's lies cloud our judgment. If there's even a chance he can help us find Leo. He paused, exhaling sharply. We have to take that chance. The harsh reality of our situation pressed down like a heavy storm cloud, the edges of my thoughts turned blurry. Each passing second carried with it a heartbeat that pulsed loud, a reminder that time was no longer our ally. Why did Calvin bring up that new player? I mused aloud, worry etched into my features. What if there's more at stake here than just us? What if Eli is implicated in whatever game Calvin is playing? Stop. We can't spiral into worst-case possibilities right now, Claire interjected, holding my gaze with an intensity one desperately needed. Focus on the present. We find Eli, figure out what he knows, and protect Leo at any cost. Just then, Claire's phone buzzed on the table, the sound cutting through the thick tension like a knife. We all exchanged glances, each of us holding our breath as she reached for it, a flicker of anticipation threading through the air. A new message's light illuminated her face, casting shadows across her features as she read. "It's from Eli," she whispered, her voice suddenly dense with urgency and emotion. "Read it," I urged, every ounce of hope hanging on her next words. It says, her voice cracked ever so slightly, then resolved in determination. "He's willing to help, but he insists we meet him at a crossroads, the old bridge, tonight," Thomas' jaw set with uncertainty. "That bridge is a trap waiting to happen. It's isolated, and we have no idea how Calvin could be watching." The weight of fear flared up again, but I gripped Claire's arm, desperate for connection. "We have to trust Eli. We have no other choice." "Fine," Thomas relented, the apprehension lingering in his eyes. "But we stick together, no matter what." "Well, make sure Calvin doesn't get to us first." In the moments leading up to our departure, Claire rifled through her belongings, gathering essentials with a focused precision that seemed almost ritualistic. I couldn't help but admire her resilience, a flicker of warmth igniting inside me. As we stepped out into the unforgiving night, the chill air bit at our skin, but I felt a fire beginning to pulse in my chest. We were bound by a singular purpose now, the image of Leo, so vivid and innocent, navigating a world that would threaten to snuff out his light. We made our way toward the bridge, the darkness cloaking us like a protective shroud. With each step, I kept casting glances at Claire, and a warm sense of gratitude welled up within me. Despite the tempest swirling around us, she stood steadfast, her bravery stronger than the icy grip of fear that sought to envelop us in hopelessness. That I could feel the heaviness of my heart weighing down my thoughts, consumed by a mixture of longing to see Leo and the gnawing uncertainty of what awaited us at the old bridge. When we finally approached the bridge, it loomed before us like an ancient sentinel crossing a chasm of uncertainty. But as we stepped onto the weathered wooden planks, a sudden realization crashed upon us, a sense of disquiet that seeped through the air. "You hear that?" Thomas mouthed, glancing back toward the road behind us. Before I could register what he meant, a pair of headlights sliced through the darkness, illuminating the surroundings in a ghostly glow. My stomach twisted into knots as the vehicle slowed, and a figure emerged from it, standing still against the brightness. "Eli?" Claire called out, her voice wavering both with hope and anxiety, but as the man stepped forward, the shadows twisted cruelly with the light revealing not Eli, but a familiar silhouette that sent chills racing down my spine. Calvin stood laughing, a sinister gleam in his eyes. "Did you really think you could escape me? How foolish you are," he sneered, stepping closer. "It's amusing to see how desperate you've become. But truly, I have something far more interesting for you." My heart raced as realization struck me like a slap. "What do you want?" "Why, to introduce you to our new player, of course." With a flick of his hand, he gestured to the figure emerging from the shadows behind him. My breath caught. There was no mistaking the familiar shape outlined by the glow of the headlights, the heart-wrenching familiarity of a face I thought was lost. "Eli?" The question slipped from my lips, a prayer filled with disbelief, but as he stepped forward into the light, the look on his face, the vacant despair, sent a shockwave of dread surging through my veins. "Isabel, I'm sorry," he whispered, but it held no conviction. In that moment, dread kicked in, and reality warped around me. Calvin was not the puppeteer alone. In this cruel game, Eli was a player as well. The weight of betrayal settled in my chest like a leaden ball. What was his role in this wicked play? My heart screamed in protest as the painful truth surfaced like a tempest. Before I could process anything further, Calvin stepped closer, the darkness curling around him like an old friend. "You see, dear Isabel, we all have our secrets. And tonight, you'll learn exactly how far you're willing to go to protect Leo." As Ella's haunted gaze locked onto mine, I felt the world tilt on its axis. The revelation hovered in the air, ominous and thick. Was Eli the ally we needed, or yet another pawn in this twisted game? and before I could even think of how to respond, a shrill scream echoed through the night, piercing the throbbing silence, and the nightmare tightened its grip around us all. Where was Leo? And what had we truly walked into? The air around us felt taut, the tension thick enough to choke on. Calvin's laughter echoed against the ancient bridge, mingling with the oppressive silence that followed Eli's empty apology. I couldn't shake the feeling that we had stepped into a web of deceit, each thread woven tighter than the last. Eli, I breathed, urgency clawing at my throat. What do you mean you're sorry? He shifted uncomfortably, his gaze darting between me and Calvin, his shoulders sagging under the weight of unspoken truths. I didn't expect it to come to this. I thought I could keep you and Leo safe, he stammered, the desperation in his tone all too evident. You thought? I shot back, bitterness flooding my voice. You thought keeping secrets would keep us safe? Do you even realize what we've been through? She's right, Claire chimed in, her hand gripping my arm, echoing my indignation. We need answers, Eli. We have no time for riddles in this mess. Calvin stood at the sidelines, a specter of cruelty watching our unraveling. Fascinating, he said, tilting his head as if we were unwitting actors in a play. But you see, Ellis Webb is but one strand in the grand design. There are more players, more stakes, and you, Isabel, you are right at the center of it all. I could feel the panic rising again like a tidal wave, but I forced myself to focus. Ellis' face was a mask of guilt and helplessness, a stark contrast to Calvin's malevolent confidence. Eli, I pressed, my voice softening, if you're on his side, why are you here? Why help us? His silence spoke volumes, suffocating the space between us. Just as I was about to crumble under the weight of uncertainty, Claire's hand tightened around mine, a small comfort amid the chaos. Isabel, listen, Eli finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. There's so much you don't know. Sometimes, to protect those we love, we have to make difficult choices. Choices? I echoed, incredulity lacing every syllable. You mean betrayals? Calvin stepped forward, his interest piqued. Ah, betrayal is such a messy word. But how would you define actions taken out of love, Isabel? To shield someone from the truth even if it means involving yourself in darker affairs. Before I could respond, a shriek pierced the heavy atmosphere once more, drawing our attention to the road leading away from the bridge. I turned toward the sound, my heart racing, instincts screaming that something terrible had happened. Leo! I cried out, the name tearing from my lips. Ellis' expression shifted sharply, and for a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Fear? Guilt? It was gone as quickly as it came. Instead, he looked at Calvin with a mixture of defiance and dread. You're going to pay for this, he said, seemingly directing his words to Calvin. But the man before us merely smirked, as if playfully toying with our fears. Oh, but I already have what I want, he said, a sinister glint in his eyes. All I need now is for you three to understand the stakes. Perhaps a demonstration is in order. Before I could process his meaning, echoing footsteps echoed from the darkness. My heart dropped as a hooded figure emerged, dragging someone along, not Leo, but a larger shadow just behind, struggling against the bind. My breath hitched as recognition hit me like a freight train. It was one of our acquaintances, Danny, a harmless kid who had tagged along with Leo at the park. What are you doing? Let him go. I shouted, voice trembling as I lost a bit of myself in the panic. Only if you entertain me, Calvin replied with a mockingly playful tone. This is my small contribution to our heartfelt reunion. The bridge creaked under the intensity, threatening to break beneath the pressure of our beleaguered hearts, our desperation hanging thick in the air. Eli! I shouted, panic surging through me, but he was frozen in place, torn between action and consequence. Calvin was right, he was now one of the players, and the game was not solely his to decide. Let him go. Claire screamed, her voice rising with righteous indignation, but Calvin just laughed, nodding toward one of the towering street lamps, illuminating the scene. Make your choice, Isabel. Walk away from this confrontation, and Danny goes free. Or, step forward for Leo, and pay the price. My heart splintered at the choice, devastation clawing at my insides. The ultimatum sat heavily on my conscience as I glanced back at Eli, who was searching my face, as if trying to find the answer buried somewhere within. Calvin's gaze flicked between me and Eli, a smirk widening with each pulse of anxiety that danced through the air. "Tick-tock," he taunted. In that moment, like a stillness before lightning strikes, I faced the darkness closing in around us, my heart fractured but resolute. But what lay ahead was a decision that could alter the course of our lives irrevocably, yet whispers of hope fluttered on the edges of my mind. Could Eli still be the ally we needed, despite this twisted game of Calvin's? The scream of uncertainty echoed in my heart, and before I could weigh the stakes any longer, I took a breath that felt like it could sever the ties of friendship, love, and loyalty all in one painful inhale. Would I sacrifice everything for Leo? And if I did, would Eli stand with me, or would the shadows of his past hold him back? "Eli!" I yelled, locking my eyes with his. This was our moment. "What are you willing to risk?" The world around us spun, the bridge groaning under our collective weight. The choice loomed before us, but a new fear gripped my heart, overshadowing the question that had started it all. What if, at the very end of this excruciating path, it was not just Leo, but all of us who might not escape the horror intact? What if Calvin had already anticipated our every move? The truth was, the deeper I searched within, the more I felt the gnawing despair that perhaps, just perhaps, Eli was not as trustworthy as I had hoped. And in that moment of palpable hesitation, I sensed the darkness tightening its grip, ready to pull us all into its depths. The reality of the choice before me seemed to stretch infinitely, fracturing into impossibilities. My heart raced as I stared at Calvin, the malevolent puppeteer who had drawn us into this nightmarish game, where innocent lives hung in the balance. "One of them, my precious sons, Isabel, please," Eli whispered, stepping closer, desperation etched across his handsome features, but there was still that shadow of doubt in his eyes. "Let's not play into Calvin's hands. We can be smarter than this." His plea cut through the chaos like a lifeline, but the stakes were unbearable. I flicked my gaze toward Danny, bound and frightened, my heart squeezing as he glanced helplessly at me. My instincts screamed for action, but the thought of what Calvin had just laid before Mimi's son or Danny felt like a split second between life and death. "Enough!" Calvin raged, his simmering patience boiling over. "You've got 5 seconds. Choose." Tick-tock ticked through the air, each pulse reverberating through me like a tolling bell. The blue lights of the street lamps flickered ominously, illuminating the scene before me, a kaleidoscope of chaos and agony, a fabric woven from threads of both loyalty and betrayal. "Mom! Help!" Danny cried, his voice piercing the tension like a dagger, each syllable echoing painfully in the stillness. He was just a kid, caught in the crossfire of a war that was never his to fight. And Leo was out there, somewhere, waiting for me. Needing me. The dread swelling in my chest morphed into resolve as a decision began to crystallize in my mind. "Danny!" I shouted, trying to anchor him in concern. "Stay strong. We're going to get you out of this." It was what I had to believe, what I had to fight for. Calvin laughed again, wickedly, relishing in it all as he leaned against the street lamp, his figure casting wicked shadows that seemed to dance with his malevolence. "Seriously, Isabel. Choose." What if Eli pulled back from my side? What if he was compromised, entangled in Calvin's twisted game? But I couldn't let fear dictate my actions. I wrapped my mind around that last sliver of hope, a promise that lingered within me. I would fight for Leo, and he would be okay, even if it cost me everything. "Eli!" I called, my voice gaining momentum, the weight of courage surging through me. "I trust you, but I need to know, are you in this with us? Are you committed to help us save Danny and Leo?" Eli stepped closer, determination flashing in his eyes as he met my plea. "I will do whatever it takes, Isabel." Then, he turned his attention fully to Calvin, resolve sharpening his features. "But you need to understand, I will never align myself with you, Calvin. Not now, not ever." The tension in the air snapped, a fragile thread holding our fates together. Calvin's expression hardened, arrogance battling irritation. "So, you're siding with the loser and trying to play the hero?" Bold choice. Seizing the moment, I turned toward Calvin, my voice steely. "You don't know who you're playing with. I'm not afraid of you. You think you've orchestrated all the moves, but you haven't seen how strong love can be." I steadied my pulse, imagining Leo's laughter juxtaposed against this looming darkness. "I needed that light to guide me," Calvin chuckled, but I could see the frustration flickering behind his eyes. You don't quite grasp how deep this game runs, my dear. Show me, I replied, unwavering. Show me what you think you know, and let's end this. Calvin narrowed his eyes, sensing my challenge, and I could feel the weight shift in the air around us. Perhaps it was because I finally understood. It wasn't a simple choice, it was a declaration of my autonomy. I was not just a pawn in his game, I was a mother, and strength ran through my veins. Time froze as Calvin considered his next move, the tension coiling tightly. The dreadful weight bore down on my shoulders, yet hope began to flicker. We were not alone anymore. With Eli at my side, and Claire's fierce determination bolstering us, I felt the air shift, and then, with a sidelong glance at Danny, who remained bound but resolute, Calvin smirked, the twisted play of destiny seemingly blossoming in his favor. Very well, Isabel. You've got your wish. But the game is just warming up. Before I could react, he stepped back and signaled, almost telegraphing the danger looming ahead. The shadowy figure behind him stirred, and I realized we were not alone. That we can't give in to him, I urged under my breath. We have to find a way, Eli. I can't lose Leo. A new figure emerged from the darkness, another player stepping onto the board. My heart raced as Eli's eyes widened in recognition. No, it can't be. The low voice I hadn't heard in so long cut through the night like a blade. You were naive, Eli. You didn't think you could keep this hidden forever, did you? A chill ran down my spine. The familiar voice sent shivers racing through my arms, and suddenly, everything felt too close, closing in around me. This new player was someone tied to our pasta ghost who had risen from the ashes. Sarah, Eli murmured, disbelief wrapping itself around his features, twisting our fate tighter than before. Calvin's smile was triumphant, as if orchestrating this taut symphony from behind the curtains. Ah, welcome back, dear sister. All thoughts of the uncertainty rippled away, replaced by a plain and restless conclusion as the cliff we stood upon turned into a chasm, swallowing the hope clinging tenuously to the last slivers of our reality. The truth washed over me like a tidal wave. Everyone in this game held secrets, and as layers upon layers began to surface, I knew this was merely the beginning. I would not break. I would not falter. Because in the darkest of nights, we need the stars to illuminate the path ahead. Whatever twisted game you're playing, it ends here, I declared, my voice steady as I glared at Calvin and Sarah, resolved to not let the shadows consume us. But as forces clashed in the battle of trust and betrayal, the storm began to brew, and I feared we hadn't just awakened the monsters lurking in the dark. We had become one with the shadows. In the end, it's our choices that define us, I thought, taking a deep breath, voice steady as our truth emerged from the depths. And I will choose my family no matter what darkness lies ahead. A frightened grip on hope surged through me, knowing that even amid the throes of despair, love would be our guiding light, and as the weight of confrontation loomed, the final echoes of our choices began to unravel beneath our feet, leaving us to face whatever end awaited us alone or united. Nothing can tear us apart, I whispered, closing my eyes to summon the strength we would need, embracing the unknown future that lay ahead. The final line faded in the air, becoming a mantra that would push me through whatever darkness awaited, because in the heart of chaos, our love would persevere.